Hello everyone, welcome to another English with Joseph. Well, it's been a long time since I've made any video clips for you. So today we are going to talk about describing photos and pictures. Now, one of the biggest problems that I have with my students is whenever I ask them to describe anything, they always just describe maybe what they see. They describe the physical characteristics. And this is good because, of course, we have to describe physical things, but when you're asked for a description, you have to look a little bit deeper into what's really happening in the picture. All right? So I have a few pictures here that I'm going to show you, and we're going to look at ways of describing these pictures. Now, the first one is quite a dark picture, I have to say. It's quite a strange picture. So let's look at it. Here we are. You see this picture here? What's happening in this picture here? Well, you could describe it physically. You could say it's a dark room, there's books, there's a monster, and a man. Alright? But this picture is actually an action picture. Alright? Let's look at it a bit more and study it. What's really happening here? Well, what's really happening is the man behind the picture, or behind the monster, clearly is very happy, or his hands are moving, perhaps trying to guide the monster in a direction. And the monster is discovering his own identity there as well. So, if you were asked to describe this picture, what would you say? Well, you begin by saying, well, there's two people in the picture. There's a monster and a person in a darkened room, maybe a laboratory. There's books in the background. But you know, in an English exam, for example, in the CAE, the Cambridge Advanced Exams, and the equivalent ones, they're not only asking you to describe the picture, they're usually asking you to compare and contrast it with another picture. Now, this picture is a picture of action, because something's happening here, all right? So you have to describe what that action is. You have to talk a little bit more about the action. And that takes a little bit of imagination. So you can use phrases like, in my opinion, or I think that, or I believe that. Okay? So if you look at this picture again, if I'm going to describe it, I'm going to say, well, I think that the man behind the monster has created it. He's clearly trying to conduct it, or he's trying to control it. But the monster looks like it's going in its own direction. Okay? The monster is moving forward. It's feeling its neck. So it looks like it's beginning to come alive. Okay? So there's some sense of an experiment happening here. Something which may have been successful. And it's almost certainly in controlled conditions. Alright? So it's important to think about what you're describing. You could just describe this picture as a dark room, books, two people, a monster and a man, okay? Or you could describe it in a deeper way by thinking about what's really happening here. It looks like a man perhaps has created something, a monster or something like this, and that monster is moving towards what looks like a shelf. Of course, this is a scene from Mary Shelley's book Frankenstein, okay? But it's just very important to think about this, okay, and to look at other ways that you could describe such a picture. Let's try another picture just to do the same thing. Let's try another one. So I have a lot of pictures here. So another one that I have here would be this one. Let's have a look. So with this one, how would you describe this picture? Okay, well, this picture isn't a picture of action because the woman here is standing still. In fact, it looks like she wants to have her photograph taken. All right, so you can see here that there's a woman with a bike, an old-fashioned bike from the past. So it's a dated picture. Okay, so you could describe what you see first of all. There's a woman, a bike, two dogs, a pink building and a sign in the background which says Dr. Calgary's Cabinet of Curiosities. Okay, so to describe this picture in a deeper way, how would you do that? What could you say? Well, it's very hard to know because there's no action there. But you could say, perhaps this is from a photographic gallery. This woman could be standing in front of a board. It might not actually be an old picture. But whatever it is, there's a woman posing for a photograph here. So, it could be an actress. It could be someone who's just stopped, got off her bike, and wanted her photograph taken. Okay, but it's some kind of photograph which has been taken deliberately. Okay, she wants to be photographed. She stopped, and indeed she's posing for it. She could even be outside her house. Who knows? Because the door is open there and there's two dogs, so there's some association with the house there. All right. So in the first photograph, where we had Frankenstein, and we also had the person with him, there's an action photo. Okay, we can describe easily what's happening because people are moving. Here, we also can describe what's happening because someone's having their photograph taken. All right, so there's a man standing with a camera, clearly who's taking a photograph. All right, and they appear to be in front of an old street, or at least standing in front of a picture of an old street. We don't know if she's really there or not. Okay, and in the background we have some dogs, we have a door and a red building. Behind that we have a strange staircase which appears to be on the top of a roof there. All right, so that's how we would describe that one. Now, how would you compare this one to the last one? Well, they both look Victorian. They both look like they could be from the same period of history, that's for sure. There's no other way to compare them. One was inside, one was outside, so that's a contrast to show how they're different. One's an action picture, and one is standing still. Okay, so that's another contrast there. All right, so if you're asked to compare both, you can't really compare them, except maybe they're from the same time period. Or maybe you could compare the colours, because they're both kind of dark. They're both kind of strange pictures, aren't they? All right. But this one's much easier to describe because it's a woman having her photograph taken. And you can talk about whether she's really there or not, you know. Whereas the other one is definitely an action picture. It's a snapshot from someone's life. All right. So I hope you found that helpful. Let's just look at the two pictures together then. All right, so we have one here, which is Frankenstein, I think, the Mary Shelley book, and someone behind him. And we also have this one here. It's very easy to imagine that perhaps behind one of these doors is this laboratory, you know. But there's nothing else really there to compare the two pictures, I think. There's nothing else we could really say about them. So in an exam, you'd be looking more at contrasting them. One picture is one person, one picture is two. One is an action picture of some kind of test or creation. And one is a photograph that's being taken. Of course, you could argue, depending on what the exact question is in the exam, depending on how these are presented to you, you could say that these are both from a particular period drama, or they're both from a TV show or something like this, you know, because they're definitely related in the sense that they come from the same point of history. They're both old pictures, one inside and one outside of it. I think that's the only comparison I would be able to find between them. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit. Photographs are always difficult to describe, especially if they're action photographs. Usually when you're presented in an exam with photographs, it's because they are trying to find a common theme, and they ask you to contrast and compare them. This doesn't happen in the IELTS exam, of course, but it does happen in the other exams. In the Cambridge exam, they present you with two pictures, and they say, what do these pictures have in common? It might be two people studying in a library, a group of people doing an exam, or perhaps three people sitting under a tree studying, all right, or out in the open, okay? But sometimes as well, they'll present two pictures completely different, like these two. And if they do that, you have to really talk about the period they come from and then contrast them with what you can see. But the idea, really, in any picture, if you're describing it, is to look behind the picture to see what's really happening. All right? So, a woman on a bike there, she could be an actress, could be from an old drama, couldn't it? It's hard to know. She could even be standing in front of a board, because remember, they didn't have colour photographs in those days. So why is she in colour? Maybe it's a painting. Maybe someone painted this. And compared to this one, this is an action picture, okay, where someone has created something else which has his own life. And you can easily see how this could be happening inside that street that the other woman's standing on. So you need to use a bit of imagination. Don't just describe what you see, but describe what you think might be happening. That's how you get the connection between the two pictures. Well, I hope you find this helpful. Let's talk again soon. See you. Bye-bye.